Unless otherwise indicated, all the following scripture quotations are taken from the Holy Bible New Living Translation, with copyright by Tyndale Foundation, used by permission of Tyndale House Publishers, all rights reserved.
I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but I've seen a lot of people complaining about the metaverse, and so far I've seen not much being done to address it. Instead, we're seeing all the wonderful benefits of the metaverse and all the great things that you can do in the metaverse, and I think that might be a problem. Hi, welcome back to my channel. I am Peachy and you are most welcome to be here. Today, again, we're talking about the metaverse because I think that a lot of people are criticizing the metaverse, but it's alarming what can potentially happen in the metaverse, and that's probably because of who's controlling this universe and how we are probably eventually going to be forced to participate in this, because if all of our systems are going online and geared towards the metaverse, if all of our education is becoming geared online and towards integrating with the metaverse and all of these kind of things, then what choice do you have but to participate in the metaverse, even if you don't want to? Let's say your bank also is going online and into the metaverse, and they're going to give you some benefits for it in order to introduce you to it. You're going to go, yeah, sure, but if you don't want to be a part of the metaverse, what's going to happen in a couple of years down the line when all of the services that are around you right now that you use are all only exclusively available on the metaverse, so on this new iteration of the internet? What are you going to do then? And over time, we'll start to see that our choice in what we get to do with our data online and how we get to participate online is going to be taken away from us, or at least that's my concern. But let's see what you have to say in the comments, and we're going to take a look at a couple of articles of people who are mentioning some issues with work in the metaverse, because I thought that this is an area in which there's a lot of exploitation that can happen. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so the first article we're going to look at is an article on Medium on a blog called Crypto Stars by someone called Hamza, right? And the article is titled The Metaverse and the Future of Work. The future of work in the metaverse is more efficient, orderly, and cost-effective for both employees and employers. Metaverse has the potential to change lives by providing new and existing jobs for people around the world. As we think about the future of work in the post-pandemic era, the metaverse slowly becomes our reality. While the idea of a metaverse can evoke feelings of apprehension and fear, the merging of our physical and digital lives has taken place. We've become addicted to screens and pixels, and many of us live and work behind them. Metaverse scientists will have to create something like a theory of everything where the entire world is digitally visible and actionable. Once we have a working metaverse, the ability to plan and implement all features in a fully virtual world will be critical for most businesses. The metaverse will require countless new technologies, protocols, companies, innovations, and breakthroughs to function. And by definition, it requires countless people and countless jobs to get anywhere near its grandiose ambitions. Several potential pitfalls and problems must be overcome if the concept of working in the metaverse is to prevail and succeed. Questions remain about how tech companies will deal with security and privacy in virtual worlds, and whether people will actually want to spend most of their lives or work in an immersive virtual simulation. We now see a future where the metaverse promises to create an immersive virtual experience that can break down the boundaries between office and remote work. Okay, so what it looks like we're seeing is a bunch of people saying, hey, look at all these wonderful benefits in the metaverse, and other people saying, this is concerning because our safety and our privacy are all at risk here, and people going, oh, we'll worry about that in the future, it's gonna be okay, just trust us and then join the metaverse. And it's so weird. It's really weird, because if people are saying that their privacy is a concern, that should be addressed initially, so that these kind of protocols and things can be built into the software at a fundamental level, so that we can protect everyone that's going to be participating on the metaverse, especially people that will be forced to work in the metaverse eventually. The next article we're taking a look at is from the Adecco group, which is titled Work in the Metaverse: How the Metaverse is Shaping the Future of Work. But perhaps the future of the metaverse may not need a VR helmet of any kind. Satya Nadella of Microsoft mentions the advantages of digitizing the space so you don't need to wear anything to enter the metaverse. I think that this entire idea of metaverse is fundamentally this. Increasingly, as we embed computing in the real world, you can even embed the real world in computing. That's kind of how I think about it, both because in some sense, one of the metaphors that I always use, which is helpful, is that as both an outside in and inside out, Nadella said. For example, you can have a space in which there are lots of cameras and microphones, and you can digitize the space. You don't need to wear anything on your head. For the rest of us, the metaverse will require us to adapt to new ways of working and interacting, which we have shown to be adept in doing. Advancements in technology are difficult to opt out of without falling behind, and resistance to the metaverse may leave us locked out of a thriving, rich virtual world. I didn't even think about the headsets being bulky and people feeling nauseated by them and all those kind of things. But that is an important concern about making the metaverse comfortable for people if they choose to participate in it. But my main concern here is how is putting a bunch of cameras and putting a bunch of microphones in someone's house going to be not a violation of their privacy? Like, really not. Can you imagine a world in which a boss turns on his computer and activates your microphone and listens to you talking crap about him in the background? Because that can potentially happen. When people are allowed to have this much power, it's very hard for people to resist abusing that kind of power. And we've seen this happen over and over. I mean, you give permissions to certain apps on your phone to use your microphone, right? And sometimes if you put your ear to your phone and you listen right there next to the microphone, you'll hear that it's on. And it listens to you at any point of time in the day, especially when connected to the internet. But it will listen to you all the time and send that information somewhere. So how are we not understanding from a technological standpoint that there's an invasion of privacy that can go on in this metaverse? And there is a serious risk of people being vulnerable to people with the tools to oppress them in this kind of metaverse. This article is by Dennis Yu, last updated in 2016, which is titled, "Your job will likely be eliminated in the next 5 years and I don't see how to stop it." He says, "Jobs will be great if you can get one. We are already facing growing, systematic, irreversible unemployment. The smarter the machines become, the higher the bar becomes for employment. And it's not just the self-driving cars, supermarket scanners, toll booth takers, and automated ordering systems. The robots are taking over the high-end algorithmic trading on Wall Street and a good chunk of marketing activities. They're doing a lot more than beating experts at board games. If we want to solve the spending crisis, I believe we need to read a few choice science fiction books that are more science than fiction to deal with challenges that must be solved at a higher level than those who have created the problems. Ultimately, we must outsmart the machines by building our systems, train up, and mentor young adults. Robots and AI can play Go and drive cars, but they can't provide true mentorship and genuine love for one another any more than a cleverly programmed animatronic can truly feel. We weren't designed to be better calculators anyway." So we see here, even as early as 2016, and probably earlier if you consider the science fiction writers, people were considering how the jobs are going to be disappearing, right? In the same way as the Industrial Revolution forced people to change from farming to more industrial work and to manufacture rather than just farming, we're going to see the same thing happen in our reality now when it comes to technology. So we know that we're in the technological age and we are seeing a technological revolution. The problem is, let's say you've got a degree that you've studied for like 5 years, 4 or 5 years, whatever the thing is, right? And now you are being potentially faced with losing your entire career, your entire choice of career because of machines. And we'll see this with skilled individuals, especially individuals that are working on already these kind of platforms like Excel and Word, and all these kind of things, where machines can just take over those jobs, like drawing up reports. A machine or an AI could do that in a couple minutes, drop a whole report based on information and sources, whatever is needed, and present that in like an hour or however long it takes for that machine to compile the whole thing. And that means that a person's job is being taken away. We're seeing digital concierges, in a sense, where when you go to a site and you need to communicate with someone about something on the site, there's a chat bot instead of an actual person that would have otherwise been paid for that. So these jobs are being outsourced, and that doesn't necessarily mean that people are being educated in order to make up for the loss of the jobs. The next article is from Forbes by Bernard Marr, and it is titled, "Why is it now time for machines to replace certain jobs?" When we talk about AI, one of the biggest concerns is jobs. There is a fear that certain human occupations and professions will become redundant, and this could have knock-on effects on society. Cashiers, tellers, and production line operatives are already being replaced in many companies even before AI enters the equation. Thinking machines are forecast to signal a reduced need for humans in many other professions, including driving, autonomous vehicles, call centers, and customer service, chatbots. Even jobs that are considered highly technical and skilled today, including data analytics and computer programming, are increasingly done by machines. However, rather than driving redundancy and unemployment, there's a push toward interpreting this as a chance to create new opportunities for people. Taking away the routine and mundane elements of a job, any job, from humans and giving them to a computer means that people will have more time to focus on the aspects that they're really best suited to. Okay, so as I mentioned before, there's going to be this competition for human beings to keep up with machines or find ways and areas in which machines can't do the work that we can do. And that's not necessarily something that's going to be solved simultaneously to the development of institutions or things like the metaverse. It's not necessarily going to happen at the same time. We already have high unemployment rates, and so there needs to be focus on fixing those things first, not saying, oh, the metaverse is going to improve our lives and everybody should transition to the metaverse, but some of the jobs that we have available now are going to disappear, and that's going to be okay, you'll just jump into the metaverse. Take a look at the type of jobs that are being done away with, in a sense, right? These chatbots, call centers, and all those kind of things. Those are jobs that are often done by low-income individuals or students, because those are often the only types of jobs that they can get because they don't have an education or because they're on their way to getting an education. So they don't have the opportunity to earn a large salary already. And the issue here is that those jobs are being outsourced to machines because it's going to be cheaper than paying for the labor. And these people they already don't have the skills to earn a large sum of money while they're studying or without an education. So either they're going to be forced to get an education that they can't afford and find a way to provide for that, or they're just going to be unemployed and they're going to have to live with government benefits. How is the metaverse actually solving these problems? It seems to be creating more problems. Technology seems to be creating more problems because the humans that are in charge of forwarding this technology are actually not paying attention to the problems that are currently existing. This article is "The Metaverse, Is It the Emergence of Digital Slaves? Be Prepared" by someone named Artie from analyticsinsight.net. Meta has launched the Horizon Workrooms app to offer employees virtual office space for team collaboration. The virtual meetings are accessible via laptop through video call or by using Quest 2 headsets. It gives a personalized feeling as the user can interact with employee avatars and perform office activities such as taking down notes, file sharing, and chatting in a virtual space, intended for effective team collaboration. Soul Machines is a New Zealand-based company that says it's designing AI-driven digital humans for clients to use for things like customer service, promotional videos, and education. However, the company also has its sights set on the future, with co-founder Greg Cross saying it plans to create a digital workforce for a potential metaverse, according to The Verge. Soul Machines, the startup from New Zealand, is creating digital people run on a system known as Humans OS 2.0. It's an autonomous animation platform with a digital brain that allows the AI to learn from its interactions with real people, according to its website. AI will be able to fulfill the future needs of humans in and out of the metaverse, or even duplicate them. I don't know how we can live in a world where we don't see having AI and bots taking over everything as not problematic. If you've watched any sci-fi shows really, any of them, you'll see that there are several problems which are still not being solved. People are just, it seems to me as if the creators of this technology are just going, oh, well, everything will work out in the end. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, those are just stories. It's just science fiction. It's not intelligent people thinking about what's gonna happen in the future and the potential for this to happen. It's just science fiction. It's just make-believe. But in reality, we are already seeing that people are being blind to the needs of people that are going to be using this metaverse, for example. So there are a couple of things that I can point out, in my opinion, which are problems with jobs in the metaverse. First of all, because the commute is now cut down, there's potential for your employers to say, hey, why don't we extend the workday by 2 hours? You don't need an hour to get to work and an hour to go home after work. So why don't we just extend the working day? That's problematic, in my opinion. Then again, overtime. You're working from home, which means your boss can pick up the phone and say, oh, hey, I forgot to tell you, can you just do da-da-da-da for me? Are you going to be able to bill that person for overtime when you're working from home? Is there a structure that's available that's going to say, okay, this is what overtime is, and are those structures going to be developed, right? And then HR, for example. If HR is potentially being outsourced to bots and those kind of things, what if people can manipulate the AI into making certain sexual harassment reports disappear? Is that not problematic? There was a lady that joined the metaverse. I saw this post somewhere, and within like 30 minutes of joining, she was already sexually harassed by 2 guys in the metaverse. And Facebook, or Meta, sorry, they said that they are working on ways in which to put a stop to this. But how do you, when there are humans in a system, and these humans are incredibly flawed, and some of them completely ridiculous? So what can you put in place? Is there an emergency button that she can press that her avatar will now leave the metaverse? Or what happens to these guys? Do they get banned from the metaverse? How does this work? These are all things that are important in our daily lives now that aren't being dealt with properly. But in the metaverse, they're expecting us to rely on them, that they will fix all these problems. It's just going to be a beautiful, easy, wonderful, smooth transition. And I don't trust that. Another issue, your job being outsourced to machines. We've spoken about this throughout the video, in which your job potentially as a low-income individual or working for lower-end jobs, right, can be outsourced. And then there are also professionals in their fields like accountants and stuff whose work can also just be outsourced. What's to stop them? What's to stop large companies from saying it's cheaper to employ a machine to do your job? What's to stop them from doing that with entire sectors of work of people? What's going to stop that from happening? When, like I've said, you're an accountant, you are working primarily on your computer because you don't have to do books by hand anymore. And this computer system is faster than you and it's more accurate than you will ever be. What's to stop them from saying, okay, you can work with an AI initially, and then saying, okay, we don't need your services anymore eventually. Okay. And then there's another thing that I thought about is, what about people that aren't that technologically adept? They're going to struggle with being integrated into this metaverse. And unfortunately, a large portion of the population that are so experienced are the older group of people who are not that easily transitioning into the technological age. They don't transition that easily. So that means that a portion of the more experienced workforce that usually earns larger quantities of money are potentially facing disability when it comes to the new kind of standard of work in the metaverse. They won't be able to get jobs because they can't interact with the metaverse if they don't know how and aren't technologically adept. Yet they are the individuals that have been working for an extended period of time, and you would probably be earning more money, isn't it? This is so strange to think about all these things. And the last things that I want to speak about or focus on is the fact that spying and theft can happen so easily in the metaverse. If you're working in a virtual office space, what's to stop your boss or your manager from coming in, looking through your virtual notes and stealing all of your things and taking credit for your work? What's to stop that from happening? And what happens to them if it's discovered that they do that? When we think about the internet, we think about the metaverse and we think about what's happening on the internet. It's all code, and that code can be exploited. There are people known as hackers, and you can literally hire hackers to do a whole bunch of things, including steal people's information off their computers. They have viruses called ransomware, which kind of do this thing and hold that person's information ransom and will give it back to them in exchange for money or whatever other kind of sources or whatever they want. But this is a serious issue. These things can be exploited. People can be exploited on the internet because there aren't those safeguards out there for people that aren't also technologically adept. There's a lot of people, especially aged people, who have computers and they don't have virus protection software or whatever on the PC. They don't have like antivirus because they just don't know they need it. And so now they come into the metaverse or they try to adjust to the metaverse and people can steal their work. And they are just average everyday people whose work and ideas and everything can be stolen in a place like the metaverse, where all of their things that they would have been keeping private or working on secretly so that they can build themselves up and obviously maybe get a promotion that they're looking for, all those kind of things, those will be done in secret. And they have the right to that privacy. They have the right to controlling their data and the things that they want to do online. And in my opinion, I don't see that happening in the metaverse. I see the metaverse as being incredibly intrusive. And I see the metaverse as becoming seriously problematic, especially for individuals that come from low-income positions. And I don't think that people are not going to be able to be exploited by large companies, especially not on a system like the metaverse. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Sorry for the long video, guys. It is freezing cold here as well. I hope that you are having a good day. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for your scripture of the day. Your scripture of the day comes from Ezekiel 3 verse 4, which says, "Then he said, Son of man, go to the people of Israel and give them my messages." Well, thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate you being here and listening to me rant about all the strange things that's going on in the world. But also, I'd love to know your thoughts. So if you could pop them into the comment section, I would greatly appreciate it. And once again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope that you have an absolutely phenomenal day further because you deserve it. Cheers!
그대 잠깐 눈을 붙일 때 나는 마음에 물을 붙여요 비밀의 나만의 초콜릿 그대 차가운